Hey guys, welcome back to Levy's Kitchen at TD Place. It's Joshua Moore, executive chef. So we're gonna do a nice, elegant, at-home dish that you can have as a family, have as a couple, whatever you wanna do. I like to call it sweet with heat. So there's a little bit of sweetness, there's some spice, beautifully marinated grilled flank steak. So there's a few little things we've gotta do ahead of time on this recipe because everything's gonna go quick once we get going. And there's a few things that are gonna take a little bit longer, like marinating the flank steak, but we wanna get some of the things out of the way. So Daikon Radish, awesome ingredient, not used very widely, at least in North America, but it's awesome. You can do all kinds, you can eat it raw, you can cook it, you can pickle it, which was what we're gonna do today. So we're just gonna take the outside peel off of it, and we're just gonna do a quick pickle on it. And we're gonna put it aside, and it's gonna be a garnish. Now with this dish, there's a few things that are gonna get cooked, but a lot of the stuff is gonna be raw, so it's gonna give the dish a little bit of distinction. Like there's gonna be that raw, crunchy vegetable, rich, sweet and salty and well-balanced broth, and then the nice charred meat, right? So we've got our daikon, regular box grater, right? I'm just gonna grate it up, right? So there's gonna be a lot of liquid in this. Now, you could do one of two things. You can leave that liquid in there anyways because we're gonna end up squeezing it out. But what I like to do for this is squeeze out a little bit of that liquid right away because we're gonna reintroduce some vinegar to it, right? Into a mixing bowl. So we got our shredded daikon radish. We're gonna take a little bit of rice wine vinegar, but you can use any kind of vinegar, but a clear vinegar, anything will work, okay? So throw a little bit of that in there, a little bit of sprinkle of salt, right? And then we're just gonna work it together, squeeze it, and almost right away, you're gonna start getting a little bit of that pickle, okay? And then we're just gonna put that aside, and we're gonna come visit that later. So what we're gonna do is we wanna get all of our sort of mise en place together before we start really cooking anything else. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of red bell pepper, and we're just gonna slice this thin. We got our red onions, or our green onions, sorry. Right, we'll take, let's just take 2 of them for this. We're just gonna give it a nice little cut. If you want, go on an angle. From an aesthetic point of view, it's gonna look a little bit better. So that's garnish for after. Carrots. You don't have to peel carrots. We're gonna use the same box grater that we did for the daikon radish. I just gave them a good wash, cut off the tip. All right, we're just gonna do half a carrot because we're just gonna do this dish today for 2 people. So that's gonna be a garnish. We've got our veg ready. The only thing we have left to do for the broth itself is ginger, thumb-sized piece of ginger. You can grate it with a microplane, on a box grater, whatever you wanna do. I've just peeled it on the outside. I'm just gonna take a few little slices of it. Just relatively small pieces. This is a pretty safe way to chop anything with your hand above the knife. So that's done. What do we have? We've got a pot of boiling water on. We've got a pot for our broth. Soba noodles. These are made with buckwheat. Just cook it cook it to the package. Like this package says 8 to 10 minutes. That's all we're gonna do. So we're gonna get this pot on for our broth, right? We're gonna get our soba noodles right into the water. Give it all a little toss. Okay, so next up, flank steak. So what we're gonna do with this piece of flank is get yourself a resealable bag. So we're gonna take our piece of flank steak. It's about 1.5 pounds. It's honestly, that piece right there is more than enough to feed 4 people. We got soy sauce, goes in, garlic, goes in, a little bit of sesame oil, in. We're gonna reserve some of that. It's gonna go on the top of our bowl after we're done. And then last piece is an orange. This is key. It's gonna give a little bit of sweetness to the dish, some perfume. We're gonna use both the zest and the juice. Now from here, you could throw that straight in, no problem. I'm just gonna chop it up a little bit. And all that does is gonna help release some of the essential oils in the orange, and it's gonna help perfume the flank steak. Squeeze in the orange juice. Some of the acidity from the orange juice is gonna help break down that meat. It's gonna make it even more tender, right? So that's it, that's your marinade done, right? You're gonna rub it around, make sure it gets all, touching all parts of the meat. And then you're gonna seal that up, however you wanna do that. If you have a backpack machine, that's great, you can do that. You wanna marinate this minimum 4 hours, but ideally overnight. I did this one yesterday, right? And all we're gonna do is we're gonna take it out of its bag and we wanna dry it off before it's going on the grill, right? But take the meat out about an hour before you're ready to cook it. What's gonna happen is it's gonna help it bring it up to closer to room temperature, where there's a more consistent temperature throughout the entire piece. Because if you throw it right on the grill super cold, that temperature is not gonna permeate down into the middle of the meat, and you're not gonna get an even cook on the piece, right? So we're just patted dry, no problem. We've got our grill on here. It's on pretty high, right? And all we're gonna do is we are gonna sear it 4 to 6 minutes per side until we hit an internal temperature of about 130 degrees, and then we're gonna let it sit and rest before we slice it. So, last piece of the puzzle, we're gonna move on to the broth. So we are gonna start with a touch of sesame oil. We're gonna go in with the ginger that we grated and the garlic. And the peppers. Again, this is why you wanna have everything sort of done ahead of time, because it goes a little bit quicker here. So just to recap, we've got our steak on the grill. Our soba noodles are almost done. They're gonna come out. We're gonna toss them also in a little bit of sesame oil. They're just gonna sit on the side. So you wanna be cooking this on a medium-high heat, right? As soon as you start to smell it, you're getting close to wanting to add all the liquid to it. So the liquid we're gonna add to this, hoisin sauce. It's got a lot of umami flavor. It's sweet, it's thick. So that's the sweet aspect of this, along with the fresh bell peppers and the carrots and the Daikon Radish. We have soy sauce, salty. Heat, sriracha, any chili sauce will work. We've got a little bit of a beef paste. You can get a Knorr variety at the grocery store, that works. For garnish, we've got a few chilies. Again, it depends on what your tolerance for heat is how much heat you want to add to this. Me personally, I like heat, so we're gonna add a bunch to it. We're gonna add 1 liter of water. We're gonna add our beef paste. We're gonna add our soy sauce. It's about 2.5, 3 tablespoons. Same thing with the hoisin. Again, it's all about balance with this dish. It's about sweet, salty, spicy. Now, I'm gonna add this now. I would suggest maybe waiting until you try it once it's all come together, but I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of sriracha to it, okay? And all we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this up to a boil, and essentially our broth is done, right? Now behind us, we got our soba noodles, right? We have our soba noodles here. They're done, they've had enough time in there. Now one thing, please, 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 do not run these underwater. Take them out, lay them on a plate, lay them on a baking sheet. Whatever you do, don't run them underwater. Right, now we wanna look at our steak. Oh, we got perfect char marks on there. Okay, so we're just gonna let that go another 4 or 5 minutes and we'll be perfect to come off. Use your senses, like taste the stuff as you go. You might want to add a little bit more hoisin if you wanted a little bit more sweetness. But just remember, you have some of the fresh carrots. That's going to add some sweetness. And then we've got our daikon. Remember our daikon? See the liquid that's starting to come out of it, right? A little bit of that salt and the vinegar is starting to pull out a little bit more moisture, which is why we squeezed it in the first place, because we're going to squeeze it again. So we're going to take our daikon, squeeze out our liquid, and there, we've got a quick pickled daikon that's going to go straight on top. And it's gonna add just another dimension of texture, of flavor, of freshness. This dish is the perfect example of why cold and hot work so well together in food. So let's start getting these together at least. We've got our soba noodles, and that's okay if they're not hot anymore. because the broth that you're gonna put on top is gonna reheat them. We're gonna add a little bit of our broth straight over top. The smell is unbelievable right now. And we got our garnishes. So all I did with the sesame seeds, just toast them in a dry pan, just until you start to smell them. As soon as you smell them, they're done. Take them out of that pan because they're gonna continue to toast. You don't want them burnt, right? So this is just a little bit of black and white sesame seed right over the top. We got a little bit of green onion, a little bit of our fresh carrot, a little bit of our pickled daikon, right? And then a chili. Any chili will work. So this is a Scotch bonnet, or a habanero, sorry, which has got a little bit of heat. It's definitely hotter than a jalapeno, right? Next up, this steak. We want to cut about 1 centimeter thick slices, but you can see the moisture. They're so tender, so juicy. So the marinade definitely did its job. So we're just gonna take a few pieces per dish, and then sesame oil. Just a touch of sesame oil over top. All that's gonna do is when it hits the heat, it's gonna perfume. A little bit more sesame seed, and done. There you've got your sweet with heat flank steak and soba noodles.